Hello, and welcome to another transformative episode of the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast. I'm your host, Eli Huang, and today we're diving deep into a topic close to the hearts of many expectant mothers: the fear of childbirth. Childbirth is one of life's most profound experiences, yet for countless women, the joy towards it can be overshadowed by anxiety, uncertainty, and fear. But what if there was a way that was gentle, holistic, to transform this fear into clarity, confidence, and calm? Joining us today, Marie, who's a childbirth educator, whose holistic approaches help women not just prepare for birth, but reclaim the joy, empowerment, and strength that every mother deserves. In this episode, we will share practical techniques, inspiring insights, and comforting guidance to help you move from fearful to fearless, empowering you to approach your birthing experience with trust and ease. So if you're ready to release your fears and embrace childbirth as the sacred and empowering journey that it is, let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast. I'm super excited to have Marie Berwald join us today. She is a holistic health coach, a yoga teacher, and a childbirth educator who specializes in guiding women through a perinatal journey with clarity, confidence, and calm. She draws on a rich blend of breathwork, biohacking, energy medicine, visualization, yoga, and other holistic tools. Maria creates powerful programs that support the whole woman from a body, mind, and spirit perspective. She believes every mother deserves to be feeling seen, strong, and deeply supported on her path to motherhood. Welcome, Marie.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what sparked your passion in this sort of niche and market around, pregnancy and, in perinatal care, really?
So I think there was this moment, I think most women have it when they're pregnant, where like at the beginning of the pregnancy, you're kind of just thinking about being pregnant. In fact, that might be all you're thinking about. And then there comes this moment about halfway through when you suddenly realize like, oh, I have to get the baby out of me. And you suddenly have this, for me, it was in this moment when I was driving in the car with my husband. And it suddenly just occurred to me that like I was going to have to birth the baby. And then I like started breathing heavy. I'm like, oh. And my husband's like, what is happening over there? And I was like, I suddenly just realized that this is actually going to have to happen. I'm feeling pretty nervous about it. And I think it's like, well, for me anyways, like there's just so much like horror stories that are out there that you hear when you're pregnant and just even before. And so I was massively nervous and then and anxious about like the whole process and how it was all going to go because there's so many unknowns. And the common solution is to do, like kind of a standard prenatal class. So that's what I did. And I kind of thought, okay, and actually like I did feel better afterward. And I felt like, like I understood the birth process. But then once labor started, I really quickly got overwhelmed by like the intensity of the contractions. And it just kind of felt like one was coming on top of another and I couldn't catch my breath. And I was like, kind of felt like I was being dragged under and I couldn't get on top of them. From the outside, like I had like a good birth experience. Like I didn't have any complications. It was like a vaginal birth, but internally it felt like a lot of struggling and it was really hard. But at the end of the day, I sort of felt like, well, this is sort of the best you can hope for, right? Like I had a healthy baby. I was healthy, right? Everything that I saw around me just kind of confirmed that like, yeah, it was just going to be a terrible, like rewarding experience, And so that was kind of like where I was. And then when my daughter was about a year old, I read a story about a woman who enjoyed her labor. And that one just blew me away.
I've heard of people who like have orgasmic labor experiences, and it's like, what?
Wait. Her birth was also natural, but like she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Right, because you think birth is equal to, fear and pain, right? that's what we're conditioned to think, that birthing is, you see the movies, you see things, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's so painful. You got to push, and it could go on. We hear horror stories from other mothers about their terrible childhood, their childbirthing stories.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's almost unfortunate. Like, I feel like if a woman has had a difficult experience, sometimes it can be very healing to talk about it and it can help her process that difficult experience. I just don't think she should process it with a woman who's like currently pregnant.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
And
choose
so,
stories.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is a little tip for anyone who's listening. If you are, talking to a woman and they start down this path where you can kind of tell that it's going to be this story that's going to really freak you out. I always tell my pregnant mamas, just like cover your belly protectively and just be like,
Cover your
I
ears,
think this
Billy.
might, they're just be like, I think this might freak the baby out. And most people will then clue in and go, yeah, maybe I'll tell you this story after you've given birth. But
Yeah, I've
anyways,
heard. So yeah, it's the same in some cultures. Like my mother said that during pregnancy, never listen to any, like never watch any scary movies. Don't listen to anything that's gonna, frighten yourself or anything. Like keep calm and happy. And there's that, like do not do anything that's going to sort of, put any shock or fear into the child. So we weren't allowed to watch any scary movies in pregnancy. Only happy, loving stories and movies, right? And it's common.
there
Like,
is it's
yeah.
actually really good scientific research now that backs that up because in utero, not so much in the early stages, but especially in the third trimester, the baby's brain is really trying to assess what kind of environment they're coming into. And they're getting information from the mom's hormonal system on like what is the world like. And so the more stress hormones that are passing through the placenta and the umbilical cord to baby, the more that rewires their brain for stress.
Yeah.
But the opposite is also true. And I think that's where like, I think one of the things that I didn't realize is that I had more agency in my whole birth and pregnancy experience than I at first thought. Anyways, so when you are shifting during pregnancy, especially in that last trimester, into a state of more calm and relaxation into that side of the nervous system, that parasympathetic side of the nervous system, then actually you are rewiring a baby's brain for peace and calm.
That's
So,
very
yeah.
That's very important. So I guess why isn't the, sort of fear amongst childbirth like discussed enough? And what can really people do about, if they have fear, what is the common thing that they're doing now? And why isn't it discussed enough? Because people think, oh, just wait. And then it kind of doesn't hit your brain, or you don't start thinking about it till you kind of get closer. Maybe in the third trimester when things are really real, you're like, oh my goodness, then all the thoughts come in sort of, much further along.
Yeah, so like I think part of the reason that we maybe don't deal with it is because it's a really uncomfortable emotion. It's hard to sit in. And so I think sometimes when there's something that makes us feel scared or anxious or fearful, we sort of try to push it to the corner of our mind where we don't really have to think about it. But of course, that isn't it's not a true solution. It kind of just pushes it to the corner, but then it always comes back. Like a lot of times, when we're lying and we're trying to fall asleep at night, that tends to be when all those worries that we've pushed to the corner of our mind come back up to the surface, and then we have trouble falling asleep. Or like for a woman in pregnancy, she might be able to push those fears about birth to the corner of her mind, but then often they will resurface during labor, which is like a time when you really can't deal with them.
So you're talking about more the unresolved fears that women can have overall, even prior to the pregnancy, during the pregnancy, that sort of all comes up. And does that come up in the laboring process and again in postpartum recovery?
I think so. I think anything that you haven't done, dealt with, then it's gonna bubble back up to the surface. A really nice little like hands-on exercise that I get all my couples to do is to do like an inventory and just to write down a list of like everything that concerns them about bringing a child into the world. So like broader than just, like I'm worried a C-section or there might be a complication. Like obviously, yes, any concerns that
but deeper fears.
but also like how is this going to change my life? Will I be a good enough mother?
Yeah.
Will our renovation be finished before the baby
Yeah.
arrives?
Yeah.
How's this going to affect my career? How are me and my husband going to be as a couple now that we're
Mm.
introducing this new person into life? What about the state of the
Yeah.
world and bringing a child? Like, it's all of
There's
that.
so much, right? Yes.
Right? And so you write down the inventory and then you look at your list and you rate them like this is like for me this is the biggest concern. This is number 2 and this is number 3. And I get both the mom and the dad to do that separately.
Yeah.
And then to pick a time to come together and actually like look at their inventories and talk about them. And in every couple, they're going to be some overlap and some different things just because you're different people, right? So you're going to have some different concerns. And then when you actually come together and talk about that, the really cool thing is that some fears, in order to be released, they only need to be expressed.
That's just, that's even a healing in itself, right? Just speaking about it to your partner, because it's always in our heads. Like we don't know what even the man is thinking. A lot of time we don't even know what our partners are thinking. And you think they're not thinking, but they do have their own fears. It's just we don't talk to them enough about it. So what other holistic approaches do you suggest in helping women address and transform their fears around birth and postpartum?
So usually when you do that first exercise, you're going to find that some of the stuff on the inventory just disappears just because you talked about
Mm,
it.
mm.
And then some of it is going to be probably a bit stickier. And then I have another process that I use with them. And I say, okay, so identify what the feeling is. So let's say I'm feeling anxious. Okay. And I'm feeling anxious about not being able to handle it. Let's say that's what it is. You just start the sentence and you just see, right? Like, what am I still feeling anxious about? Okay. So I'm feeling anxious about not being able to handle labor. And then here's the really key thing you say, and I feel that way because I believe.
There's always an underlying belief system behind that.
And the thing is that, like, our subconscious is not trying to hide our beliefs, but
No.
often we're not giving it space and we're not really listening. But I
Yeah.
find that
We're not
that
bringing it to the
sentence,
conscious. So it's all in the unconscious, but we're not bringing it to the forefront, the awareness. It's there, but until we really sit and think and really, look under the surface, then it's going to be more aware.
yeah.
You
And
have
and
that
that's
awareness.
bringing that awareness is so key because it can be different for like so
Mm,
like every woman will finish that sentence differently, right? And then it's like you realize that like maybe what comes up when you say that because I believe that the women in my family have difficult births. And you
yeah.
suddenly realize that like, oh, your mom and your sister had difficult births and you've been carrying forward this idea that it's going to have to be difficult for you because that's in your family, right?
Mm,
Or it's because like you're like, I don't deal maybe when you say that sentence and you say it's because I believe that, you know, I'm no good in stressful situations. Right. Or whatever it is,
yeah.
right? Like there can be a million different underlying
Yeah.
beliefs,
Yeah. Yeah.
but bringing that up to the surface because then you can actually deal with it.
Mine was opposite, actually. My story was like my mum and my sister had really easy births. My mum, popped me out in like an hour. My sister she had her first child just before me, a month before. They had fairly easy births in consideration to my long labor and then an emergency cesarean. So I was like, oh, my birth is going to be easy and all of that. And then, oh, I had a rude awakening. You never know what's going to happen. We can prepare all we want, but then, our baby might decide to come out, some other way or, it's, as long as the baby's healthy. But I think going into it being calm and I think having the resources and going, whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. That too, right? Because we never know what's going to happen in the labor. Like I remember prepping, I did all the calm birth courses, I did, all the meditations, I was doing everything that supposedly you can do. I was in a good headspace, but yeah, the labor happens the way it does, and we can't always control that. But I think just being able to be calm through the process and not have that fear, like even if the fear is just for a short amount of time, we're not thinking about it from the beginning of pregnancy. Like I've got a client who literally says, I don't want to have a baby because I fear the birth process. And I'm like, you don't have this beautiful because of this one aspect of having a beautiful child. Like her reasoning is, and that's probably what's been holding her back. It's like, I fear this birth process. Like, it seems like it's going to be so traumatic. And yeah, that's probably keeping her back from falling pregnant too. So
And I think it's important to like kind of clarify like what is trauma? Like, because a C-section doesn't necessarily mean
Mm,
trauma. A
correct.
vaginal birth could mean trauma. Like
Yes.
it's about do you feel loved and supported through the process?
Mm,
Right? Are you in your parasympathetic nervous system?
yeah,
Do you have oxytocin? Like this whole podcast is about hormones, right? Do you have oxytocin,
that's
dopamine,
right.
serotonin, and
Yeah.
endorphins flowing through your body to keep you feeling good? You know, like a lot of my the women that I work with, even if like a cesarean is medically necessary, a lot of them will have told me afterwards that the anesthesiologist was like, "You're really calm." Usually, I add some calming drugs into the mix, but he's like, "I don't think you need that. You seem to be like," and they're like, "Yeah, because like they're just taking the skills that they learned
Yeah.
and applying them in that situation."
And I think well, that happened with me. The first time I had a C-section, it was medically needed. The second time, because the first C-section was so traumatic, I was like already preempting that the second one was going to be just as bad. So I did need a C-section the second time. But the second time was completely different to the first. Different doctors, different experience. Yeah, the recovery was so different, right? So each birthing process doesn't mean if you've had one traumatic birth, all the other ones are going to be the same. Whereas I've had people who've had traumatic vaginal birth. So there is always something, not necessarily whether it's C-section. I know people want that vaginal birth because it's what's supposed to be natural. And then there's all the sort of good bacteria that comes out through a vaginal birth and all of that, right? Yeah, like you said, it's basically your mindset in the moment and being calm, going through either or, right? So if we can keep those fears down and do that work beforehand, this is what you're getting at. It's important to actually look at that and do that so that when you're on the day, no matter what the outcome or how that birth process is, you're in that good state of mind and yeah,
Yeah.
and you're in a good place.
I think as a society, we tend to be either unattached and then unprepared or prepared and really attached.
Yeah.
It's like a bit of a
That was me
pendulum.
the first time, prepared and really attached to the outcome. And it's like, I wanted a water birth. I wanted a beautiful water birth. You know, I even booked a suite and then it
Yeah.
didn't happen any way I visualized it whatsoever. So, yeah, we become attached about how that outcome is going to be.
Yeah. And like this was something that I pulled from like a kind of a yogic way of like approaching life is like intention with curiosity rather than attachment. And
Mm,
curiosity, I love curiosity because
yeah.
curiosity creates openness. So if you go into your birth saying like, yes, this is what I'm, intending, because if you have intention, you will do preparation. Preparation is still really key. So if you have intention, you do the preparation. But then if you stay curious and just be like, we'll see how it unfolds and just be like, you know what? I'm going to be able to find beauty no matter how it unfolds if I'm looking.
Yeah. So are there any other techniques that you suggest or practices that the listeners can use if they're feeling overwhelmed or throughout that childbirth anxiety, or is it sort of you to do that work prior? So what are some simple techniques that they can start doing early in the pregnancy or even in the last trimester or throughout the birthing process itself?
I think the more often that you put your mind and body into that parasympathetic side of the nervous system, that's going to release all of those positive hormones and it's going to shift your brain waves, slow the brain waves down, right, to alpha and beta. So I think one of the easiest practices that I recommend for like any pregnant woman is to go to bed every night with a guided meditation.
Yeah.
And it's going to, and especially if you're like, I have a whole bunch that are free on YouTube. If anyone's
Amazing.
listening
Yeah,
and
we'll
wants
pop
to
the
check them
link.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Link in.
And just listening to a guided meditation at bedtime, it'll start to like just ease the anxiety, start to build the confidence that, you can do this. Your body is designed for this.
Yeah.
And, even if you do, are one of the people who do need medical assistance, you can still be okay. It can still be a really beautiful experience. And so it's that repetition. So that's probably number one, is just putting yourself into a relaxed state daily. And you're going to have all those benefits for the baby, rewiring your brain for peace
That's
and
right.
calm.
When can they
So
start?
that's really good.
Last trimester or even earlier?
Well, you should start right away. You should start right away
Yeah,
because,
right.
like, in that first trimester, oh my God, you're so exhausted. So, like, just taking time to listen to a guided meditation is a really good way to allow your body to have like a mini rest and a reset, which you absolutely need.
Yes.
And then in the second trimester, guided meditation is a really nice way to start connecting with the baby, starting to think about them as a person.
Mm,
And then, yeah, final trimester, really beautiful way to like start preparing for labor. So
yeah.
yeah, guided meditations I love. And then probably my other favorite tool for releasing fear is tapping.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So tapping is kind of like a combination of like modern psychology with
Yeah.
acupressure points from
Yeah.
traditional Chinese medicine.
Yes.
And I've created a tapping resource. I can share it in the show notes with your
Mm-hmm.
listeners. And it's specifically for those really like sticky fears that, you did the other things, you listened to the guided meditations, you wrote it
Yeah.
down, and it's still kind of sticky. The tapping will really release it.
Yeah, no, acupressure, tapping, like all the affirmations, it's so powerful. What other sort of practical advices would you offer women who are experiencing that panic or anxiety about labor whenever the topic comes up? So I guess the sort of meditation throughout, but what other advice would you offer them when, when they start to think about that panic or the anxiety, especially if they're going through various different health challenges as well. Some of them have got the gestational diabetes or, any other things that might come up in the pregnancy and, all of that. There's so much anxiety, especially even let's talk about even earlier on in the pregnancy. A lot of people getting that anxiety between, 4 weeks and 10 weeks, because that's obviously when miscarriage is really high. I get clients who had previous miscarriages and straight away that panic and anxiety, you can't help it sets in. Or I have clients that go, oh, they've heard that miscarriage is high. It is common in about 25 to 30% of people that can obviously have a miscarriage. So that panic and anxiety creeps up from the whole pregnancy. Some people are anxious the whole pregnancy,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's quite common, especially even early on. So there's different sort of phases. The first phase are like, what if a miscarriage happens, and especially if it's an
Mhm.
IVF baby, all of that. Yeah.
I think when I think about fear, there's this one of my heroes. Her name is Corrie ten Boom, and she was a Dutch woman who, during the Second World War, her and her sister hid Jews, and they ended up getting caught midway through the war and sent to concentration camps. And she has this very famous quote, and I'm probably going to misquote it, but I'll do my best. And it basically says that worry doesn't take away tomorrow's problems; it robs today of its strength.
That's true.
And that just resonated so much for me. And so I think that, like, first we have to acknowledge that, like, it's not doing anything productive. It's not solving tomorrow's problems at
Yeah.
all, you know? It's just crippling you and not allowing you to live today. And so, but it's like, so there's that side of it. And I think it's important to acknowledge. But then on the other side, sometimes it can feel like it's got you trapped in a cycle, right? Where like there's just one more thing to worry about because pregnancy does. Like, I completely agree. There's like as the pregnancy develops, there's just new things, right?
Mm,
So I think using that same phrasing, I think is always helpful. Like when you start feeling unconscious or like anxious, sometimes we feel anxious, but we're not actually sure like what's going on in our head because it was like three thoughts behind that like caused the anxiety. And now our brain's just kind of like a little monkey jumping forward.
hmm
And so I think slowing down and identifying it's like, okay, how am I feeling? Like naming it, right? Like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. How is it making my body feel? Like actually like I kind of feel like a bit uncomfortable in my stomach or like I can feel some tightness in my
Where is,
chest.
yeah.
Yeah, where is it, right? Bring your because sometimes we live so much in our heads, right? It's important to be present in our own bodies. And so then noticing how that is. And then I always go to the breath. So, and having like one hand on over your heart, one over your baby, and breathing all the way down to baby. So breathing all the way down to the bottom of the lungs. That's a really easy reset. And if you try to take a deep breath, just yawn. Just do a big yawn
Mm-hmm.
because yawning is like a mini reset for your brain, actually. And then I usually recommend a cycle of 5 slow breaths. So like an in, 2, 3, 4, little pause, out, 2, 3, 4. And then ask yourself, like, I'm feeling anxious about,
Yeah. State what it is.
and I'm feeling anxious, and I'm anxious about that because I believe, and then see what comes up, right? And then tap it out once you're aware. That's my process for any kind of anxiety that comes up throughout pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah, there is so much around that early stage, and then towards the end, we're fearful of the pregnancy itself. So, what's one critical piece of information about birth that you wish a lot of expectant mothers knew how to alleviate fear? What's one thing that they should really look at in the sort of, pregnancy itself to alleviate the fear? I think you've covered so mainly a lot of mindset, the belief systems as well. Is there anything else that they really need to know?
In terms of like just releasing fear, I think for some people, I think the other thing that I hadn't mentioned yet is for some people, and this you have to kind of see personally where it sits for you, but that's like data collection. For some people, knowing more does really ease their worry. So like for some people, if they're worried about a C-section, they really need to know the process of a C-section. And once they understand the process of a C-section, they feel much more comfortable about that.
Because we fear what we don't know sometimes, right? So if we have more of the knowledge. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, I think that one depends. Some people, like, that's not so true, that like they just kind of continue to spiral. But for some people, actually having a little bit more information helps them feel more empowered, because often when we're feeling scared, we don't feel like we have agency. And so sometimes being like, okay, so what is the parts of this like scary thing, right? Like, let's take the risk of a miscarriage, right? So is there anything that I can do to like lower my risk? So for some women, going to their doctor or their midwife and asking that question, right? And for the most part, like, there's not a lot, right? And so then, but for some things in pregnancy, there is some wiggle room, right? Like for gestational diabetes, there is some things we can do with diet to like really reduce the risk. So sometimes having that, being able to take those proactive steps can be helpful.
Yeah. Can you share a memorable story of a client who's overcome intense fear around childbirth through your holistic methods?
Oh God, yeah. I remember my one gal when she started working with me. So I have a course that helps them prepare for birth. And a lot of it is alleviating, just building skills and then alleviating anxiety. And when she enrolled, she said, before I met you was literally, I'd already had a discussion with my doctor about a planned C-section, because she was like, I didn't need it. There was no medical reason, but I was just so scared of birth. And she's like, and I was just so scared that I didn't think I could ever do it. And she's like, and your course, like, it just opened my eyes. I was like, oh my goodness, like I could actually, like, I could do this, like, and it could be a positive experience. And yeah. And then like, and then I got like the, little email, like with her and her babe, like a little while later with, the little picture, and she's like, we did it together. And I think that's just like,
So did she have a C-section or did she have a natural birth?
No, she had a natural birth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So she's like, this totally changed my mindset, right? Like that, like I just went from being so fearful to actually, like, by the time like I was like close to labor, I was actually like excited for the labor process to start.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you're saying, it's so important for women to communicate their fears about childbirth with their support network, their birthing team prior to that. So what's the best way to start that conversation? Like, do they just speak to their OB, and like, how can they start communicating?
Yeah, I think
being empowered.
That's a whole like story about like choosing someone who is in good alignment with you, right? And that's like a whole
What about
nother
having a
discussion.
doula? What about having a doula on the day? What do you think of the
There
doula?
is only positive outcomes that happen from having an extra female in the room.
Yes.
Okay? Like, they have done so much research on this.
Yeah.
and like just traditionally women were never meant to birth or surrounded by strangers.
No.
Just think of like we have been humans for a very long time. We have birthed with
Yeah, and when they
strangers.
do it in some cultures, there's a whole tribe. The grandmas, the aunties, the whole tribe comes around, all the women. The men stay out of the room usually, and now most of the time it's strangers. Your OB you've seen what, like a handful of times, and then your husband who knows no idea what you're doing, right? And can't
Yeah,
really be there apart
yeah.
from you squeezing their hand. There's not much else. But yeah, they're usually birthed with all the amazing women in their family and tribe that have the experience really of giving the birth, of helping to deliver the baby.
And like there
Yeah.
is like continuity of care is if you're looking at things that improve birth and both in terms of outcomes and then and also in terms of just like satisfaction. Again, it's like if a woman feels loved and supported during her labor, things go better. You know,
Yeah.
they because then you're getting the oxytocin and the oxytocin is running the show, right?
Mm,
Like oxytocin causes contractions. It's literally running the show. And so if a woman is feeling loved and supported, she's going to have high levels of oxytocin. She gets high levels of oxytocin. There's much less chance that she's going to need interventions because things are going to
yeah.
progress the way they're supposed to, right?
Yeah.
So when and like love and support can look like different things, but like everybody needs that. And so yeah, having a doula or like a best friend or like it's like who is that other female who is going to make you feel calm and supported
Yeah, I
and
had a
and you want
client
her.
who had her mother in the birth. She only gave birth 2 weeks ago. She had her mother there, but her mother is amazing. You know,
Yeah,
she's got three of her own daughters, so she's very close to her children, and she wants to be there at all of their births. And she said it was amazing having a mother, you know, with her. And the mum said the same thing. She goes, I wouldn't miss it. And so I guess having partners and family members, if they're there to effectively support the woman, it can really help them in that process. So are there any
yeah, I
advice you
always
would
say
give to
like,
those?
yeah, so I always recommend that you like for a pregnant woman to really kind of reflect in like who amongst my circle
Mm,
would help me feel calm and supported, right? And then the other caveat is that person has to be okay with your birthing location. So like if your best friend would help you feel really calm and supported, but she has like an intense fear of hospitals, that's not going to be a great match,
yeah.
right? Or
Mm-hmm.
if you're birthing at home and your auntie is the one you want, but your auntie doesn't agree with home, then that's not a good match. They have to make you feel calm and they have to be on board with your birthing location.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I guess close sort of wrapping up, are there any sort of empowering affirmations or thoughts you would like women who are fearful about childbirth to carry them as they approach labor or they're nearing the end of their pregnancy? Any sort of empowering thoughts and things that they should be sort of using now?
I think remembering that your body was designed to like
Mm,
your body was designed to carry life and like it has the built-in mechanisms that, make this all possible, right? Like just like you didn't have to figure out how to grow an eyeball, like that just happened kind of magically
yeah. Your
inside you,
cells, your body
right?
knows what cell's going to be a heart cell, a brain cell, an eye cell, a fingernail cell, right? They come out and the baby's like perfect. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so like reminding yourself that like you can trust your body and then, building skills. Building skills so that you don't get in your body's way. So you can put yourself into that receptive state in your mind, in your heart, in your, physically so that you can follow your body's lead.
Amazing. And I guess, is there any little last powerful insights about childbirth you've gained that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I just think that like I just hope I can crack over the possibility that it can be like a really beautiful
Mm,
experience no matter how it unfolds.
yeah.
And that it like no matter what, it is an experience that is impactful. Like
Mm,
every woman, like when people have like they asked 80 and 90-year-olds what were the most memorable events in their life, and the birth of their children is almost always cited. So like no matter
yeah.
what, this is going to be a moment that is going to have an impact on you forever
Mm.
because it's this little person who's coming into the world who is going to occupy such a big place in your life.
And especially for
And
those who've had struggles through a long, like pregnancy or a long, infertility journey, when that baby comes, you forget everything. And then, look, I always say to clients, the birthing process is what, a day, maybe 2 days
mhm,
max. And then you've got this beautiful, healthy, happy baby that, you made together, which is absolutely just, yeah,
yeah.
it's so profound. And it's such a beautiful process. But yeah, I think you've given us some amazing tips, Marie, and we're going to post all the links to all her free. She's been very generous to give us some of the free meditations, and yeah, it's been great to have you on, Marie, and to share with the listeners, basically, yeah, just some of the things that they can start doing now, and as soon as they're pregnant, just to start looking at all of those things throughout the whole pregnancy, because it comes pretty quickly. The 10 months before you know it, your baby's here. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. All right. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Holistic Health and Hormones podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring or informative, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It'll help us reach more women like you on their journey to vibrant health and balance. For more tips, resources, or to work with me directly, visit my websites. And remember, your health is your superpower. Keep nurturing it, and I'll see you in the next episode.